Hiya, this is Nutty Rock Chick, and I've noticed a few people have been putting out videos about how they're sick of pro wrestling and they're having a dip in their passions at the moment. And I just kind of wanted to share what it is that makes me, and has always made me, love the wonderful world of sports entertainment and pro wrestling. And I think that I'm one of the few people who, I don't have a, well, I suppose you could say that I'm probably a WWE fan before anything else, because I watched it, I've watched it since I was, 8-9 years old, and I'm 30 this year. So 2 decades plus of watching something that I love. And yeah, you can call me a WWE Mark, because I can remember the first thing that got me was watching the Rockers come down to the ring, and I just thought, wow, this is amazing. And I remember nagging my dad something rotten to record the pay-per-views for me. And yeah, WWE may not be at its best at the moment, and there are bits when I watch it I just think, oh. But it's never going to be what it was. It's never going to be the generation you came into it with. I mean, I probably have a slightly different perspective, because when I started watching was way before the Attitude Era. So I kind of watched it go through that. I kind of watched it go from being very much the only, in a lot of ways, pro wrestling, and it was always booked that way, always, through the entire history of the WWE. They never really acknowledged any of the wrestling companies until literally they were breathing down their throat. It was always kind of how they were, and I must admit, I didn't watch WCW, I didn't watch ECW. I grew up in a house with an older brother and an older sister, and fighting for television time. There's no way I was going to get to watch 3 different wrestling programs. That I got to watch WWE was more my dad than anything else. Bless his heart, he was an absolute star at recording them for me. There was something about the WWE and the storylines and the intensity and the way they made the matches feel important that really drew me into the whole pro wrestling world. As I'm sure most of you know, I was a latecomer to both TNA and ROH. But when I first started watching TNA, Jeff Hardy had gone in and he had a match with AJ Styles. And I remember the commentators kept saying, the phenomenal AJ Styles, and he's phenomenal. And I was like, okay, so why are they saying this guy's phenomenal? What's so good about him? Because I was a Jeff Hardy girl, and I was. I totally wanted to be Lita. Obviously, with my shape, not ever going to be a Lita, but you know what I mean. And so I was kind of like, so who is this guy? Because, like, hate to do a Nikki from Big Brother, kind of like, who are you? But it was. And so I actually sat down and pulled up a playlist on Dailymotion, which had 90 odd videos of AJ on it, and I literally sat and watched them. I watched virtually the entire playlist, and I was like, oh my god, this guy is amazing. And through watching that, I saw Unbreakable 05, and I was like, oh my god, this reminds me of what I fell in love with in WWE. This is like watching Chris Benoit and Kurt Angle in the day. This is good wrestling. I was like, wow, I really, really like this. And the more I watched, I mean, I watched sort of AMW and Triple X, and I was just like, oh, this is really, really good. And the second I started watching Motor City Machine Guns, I was like, wow, yeah, this is tag team wrestling. This is what I love. Because I really, really miss tag teams because the WWE hasn't had good tag teams for a long while now, since the end of the Dudley Boys, Hardys, Edge and Christian, really. There've not been any major tag teams that have made it. You need more than one tag team for a division. As good as sort of Jericho was, they didn't have enough real competition. So it never really felt as good as it could have been. I actually kind of think it's a shame that they've not done more with bringing in sort of the Dude Busters and Kurt Hawkins, and I've completely forgotten his name. Nope, Vance Archer. Yay! See? The gears caught up with me in the end. And the Dude Busters and all of those guys. They could have rebuilt a tag team division if they'd have wanted to. But they kind of just went, okay, we're going to give you a couple of tag team matches, and then we're going to forget about it again. And it's just like, aww. But they kind of, and they brought in the Usos, and it was like, yes, a real tag team. And we got, 4 matches? 4 exactly the same matches, even. And it's just like, oh. So I think, even though I know TNA doesn't have the X Division that it did have, because the X Division matches just made my jaw drop. I think they're brilliant. I think Ultimate X is one of the best things I've ever seen. I thought the 6-sided ring was really cool. Obviously, they got rid of it. But there was a lot in TNA that I saw and went, yeah, I can get into these guys. And then, of course, Anderson came out of his shell and did the Anderson's asshole thing, and that, I really like that. I think that's really, really good. And the Pope's kind of grown on me. I don't really like the direction TNA's in at the moment, but I stuck with WWE for 20 years, so I'm more tolerant, I guess, of the bumpy patches than a lot of people. And then I started watching ROH, thanks to Mr. Truth Slayer, who badgered me into it, pretty much. He's like, when are you going to watch ROH? When are you going to watch ROH? I was like, okay, just pick me 3 DVDs to buy. And he did, and I bought them, and I was like, wow. Again, this is wrestling. This is real good technical wrestling. Some of the matches I was just like, whoa. I think the one thing that ROH sometimes lacks is psychology. But having said that, and I do love psychology in matches, I think me and Mark P have very similar tastes when it comes to that. I like a storyline through a match. Speaking of which, people were going on about best TNA matches of the year, and Angle Hardy, and I was just like, I'm sorry, but for me, Anderson and Angle in the cage was far better. I loved the psychology of that match. I loved the backwards and forwards. You didn't know who was going to win at any point. I really, really enjoyed that, and I don't like screwy finishes at the best of times. I think Kurt Angle walking out and standing on Ken Anderson's bollocks on the way out of the ring was just brilliant. It was the icing on the cake. It was a bloody good match. That for me is what makes a match. I love the psychology. But having said that, when you watch an ROH match, you don't think about the fact there isn't that much psychology until after the match is finished. And that to me says something. The fact that they can keep your mind so entertained that you don't miss the psychology while the match is going on. That's a bloody good thing. I admit, I haven't watched Dragon Gate yet. I haven't watched Shikara yet. Both of which I am like looking forward to watching. I think I am one of the few people that actually likes commentary. So the Japan and Mexico, as much as I would love to watch, I really struggle with it not being able to understand what the commentators are saying. Really bothers me. I know I'm weird like that. But I like being able to I like having some sort of, I think it adds something. I mean, certainly like the Jim Ross-esque commentators, even sort of Dave Prazak and the other guy on ROH, to a certain extent, they do add something to the match, because as the match is going on, they're giving you bits of story, and it brings you into the match. And I think that quality, I think I would miss too much with some of the Japanese stuff and some of the Mexican stuff, though I am quite interested in watching it. I am going to watch the Dragon Gate one that was on the other night on Go Fight Live. Apparently we can order a replay in a couple of days, so I am going to be doing that. So that will be my introduction to Dragon Gate. Hopefully it's a good show. Please, anybody who's watched it, who is actually one of my subscribers and watches my videos, can you please tell me if this Dragon Gate show is a good introduction to Dragon Gate? Because I don't know the guys, I don't know the storylines, I don't know anything, and I kind of want something that'll wow me. Luckily, my first ROH proper pay-per-view was Death Before Dishonor 8, and I spent about 2 hours after that show going, wow. I was just like, wow. Oh, I just thought it was brilliant. I'd been watching, when I decided to watch ROH, I'd bought the 3 DVDs, and I watched them, and I was like, right, I need to get to know the storylines, I need to get to know the guys properly. So I sat down and watched loads and loads of HDNet shows, and admittedly, you will get sort of 2 average TV matches and one good match on every HDNet show, usually. And you'll get some good promo-y bits. And I watched, I think, about 6 months worth of HDNet. So before Death Before Dishonor, so I was caught up on who everybody was and what the storylines were. And when Generico came in the ring and just went, Steen, no! I was like, yes! I was totally buzzing off that pay-per-view. And then we had that, like, slump, and it was just like, and then we got the last 3 matches, and my brain was just going, oh my god, how can this get better? And then it did. And then it did. And it was just like, whoa. My head couldn't quite get around how good it actually was. I do think Glory Be Honor was less good, but I think they kind of needed to have a come down from Death Before Dishonor, because Death Before Dishonor was so good. It was just like, they couldn't go up from there, I don't think. So, what I'm trying to say is, I don't think that watching sports entertainment makes you less of a wrestling fan. I don't think watching indies makes you less of a sports entertainment fan. As far as I'm concerned, you can call me a WWE Mark. You can call me a TNA fangirl. You can call me an ROH bot. But at the end of the day, I love sports entertainment. I love professional wrestling. And I think it's brilliant.